Do you know anyone with room for a girl? That was the question that stopped Declan Cross, the most feared man in New Orleans, outside his own supper club on a rain-black night. Not a plea for money, not a cry for food. Just one barefoot child shaking beneath the glow of velvet windows, asking if the world had one safe corner left. Inside, the saint and sable men with power drank bourbon under gold lights. Outside, Mia Carter held a torn stuffed fox like it was the last thing that had never betrayed her. This is not just a story about a mafia king and a lost little girl. It is about what happens when love walks into a room built for danger. Stay with me until the end, like this video, and comment where you're watching from. The question followed Declan Cross into the elevator long after the doors closed. Do you know anyone with room for a girl? Mia stood in the corner farthest from him, swallowed by his coat. Her small fingers locked around the torn fox in her arms. Rainwater dripped from her hair onto the polished floor. Every drop seemed too loud in the silence. Declan did not move toward her. That was the first thing Sloane Avery noticed. Men moved when Declan wanted them to. Rooms changed shape around him. Whole conversations died when he walked in. Yet now he stood with his back near the elevator wall, hands loose at his sides, giving a barefoot child the kind of space most grown men never received from him. Sloane pressed the button for the 4th floor. Mia watched her hand. Not her face. Not the numbers above the door. Her hand. Sloane saw the fear in that look. It was not the fear of a child who disliked strangers. It was older than that. Sharper. Trained into the bones. The elevator hummed upward. Declan looked down at Mia's feet. The skin was raw blue at the edges, split near one heel. She had walked through cold rain long enough for pain to become something her body no longer argued with. His voice came low. What happened to your shoes? Mia tightened around the fox. I didn't earn them. Sloane's breath caught before she could stop it. Declan's face did not change, but his eyes did. Something dark moved behind them, slow and controlled like a storm closing its fist over the gulf. The elevator doors opened onto the private floor. The hallway was quiet and warm, lined with dark wood panels and old brass lights. Downstairs, the saint and sable breathed jazz and bourbon and perfume. Up here, the world narrowed to thick carpet rain-streaked windows and the soft glow of lamps left burning for meetings that were never written down. Mia did not step out. She looked at the carpet first, then at Declan. I'll get it wet. Sloane wanted to say something soft, something comforting, but soft words could bruise if they landed wrong. She had seen enough frightened women in back rooms, enough trembling waitresses after powerful men forgot the word no. She knew panic did not always respond to kindness. Sometimes it only believed patterns. Declan stepped out first. Then he turned and waited. The carpet has survived worse than rain. Mia looked at him as if trying to decide whether that was a trap. It's not mine. No, Declan said. But you can walk on it. The girl stared at the floor. Then she lifted one small foot and crossed into the hall. She walked on the edges of her feet, trying to leave no mark. Declan saw it. Sloane saw it. Neither of them corrected her. At the end of the hall, Sloane opened the guest suite. The room had once held senators, bankers, men with blood on their cufflinks, and women who could ruin careers with one phone call. Tonight it looked almost innocent. A cream sofa sat before a glass front fireplace. A wide bed waited beyond an open archway, its white sheets turned down with perfect hotel precision. A bowl of oranges rested on a walnut table beside a carafe of water and a covered plate of warm rolls sent up by someone in the kitchen who had already heard whispers. Mia stopped in the doorway. She looked at the bed the way a starving person might look at a locked bakery window. Not wanting, not reaching, only knowing it was meant for someone else. Sloane placed a hand on the door frame, careful not to block the exit. You can come in. Mia shook her head once. I'm wet. We have towels. I'm dirty. We have soap. Mia's chin lowered. People get mad about dirty. The words were so small that they should not have filled the whole room, but they did. Declan moved past Sloane and entered the suite. He did not reach for Mia. He did not beckon. He simply walked to the sofa and placed his hand on the back of it. This sofa cost more than some cars, he said. Mia stared at him. Declan looked at the cream fabric, then back at her. It will survive you sitting on it. For one strange second, Sloane nearly smiled. Not because it was funny, but because it was so painfully Declan. Comfort delivered like a business verdict. Mia stepped inside. The door stayed open behind her. That mattered. She looked back twice to make sure. Declan noticed that too. Sloane went to the bathroom and returned with a towel. She held it out, then thought better of it and laid it on the table instead. For your hair if you want it. Mia did not touch it. Her eyes kept sliding toward the rolls. Declan removed his coat from her shoulders, slowly pausing when she stiffened. Underneath the pink hoodie clung to her thin arms. It had a stain near the pocket and a torn seam at the wrist. One sleeve was stretched as if someone had dragged her by it. The bruise on her jaw was worse in the light, yellow at the edge, purple in the center. Sloane turned away before Mia could see her face. Declan folded his coat over the arm of the sofa. You can sit. Mia looked at the sofa again. On the edge, anywhere you want. She perched at the very end, knees together, heels tucked beneath her. Finch, the torn fox, stayed pressed to her chest. Declan sat in the chair opposite her, leaving the space between them open. Sloane remained standing near the table. Would you like water? Mia looked at the glass, then at Sloane. Do I have to drink it all? No. Do I have to say thank you first? Sloane swallowed. You can say it when you want to. Mia reached for the water with both hands. The glass trembled so hard that Declan leaned forward slightly, then stopped himself before the movement became too much. Mia drank 3 careful sips and set the glass down with the precision of someone returning stolen property. Declan watched her throat work. Are you hungry? No. The answer came too fast. Her eyes dropped to the bread. Her stomach made a hollow sound beneath the thin hoodie. Mia went bright with shame. I'm sorry. Do not apologize for being hungry. The room changed around those words. Mia looked at Declan as if he had spoken in a language she had heard once in a dream. Sloane lifted the cover from the plate. Steam rose from the rolls. Mia's fingers tightened around Finch. Declan leaned back. Take one. Mia did not move. Is it for me? Yes. Did someone else want it? No. Will they be mad? No. Her eyes flicked to his mouth again. Searching. Measuring. Can I save some? Declan looked at the girl who had asked for room instead of rescue, who had learned to negotiate with hunger before she learned to lose baby teeth. There will be more later. Mia did not believe him, but she wanted to. That wanting hurt Sloane more than disbelief would have. Mia took one roll with both hands. She held it a moment, waiting for someone to change their mind. When no one did, she bit into it with the smallest possible bite. Her eyes closed, only for half a second. Then she opened them quickly, as if pleasure was dangerous when seen. Declan looked toward the fireplace, giving her privacy. Sloane pretended to adjust the towels on the table. Mia ate half the roll and stopped. Not full. Never full. Saving. She tucked the rest beneath Finch's limp body hidden between the fox and her chest. Declan saw it. Sloane saw it. Neither said a word. A knock sounded at the open door. Mia jerked so hard the glass rattled. Benny Walsh filled the hallway like a wall in a black suit. His scarred hand rested near the doorframe. He saw Mia's face and immediately lowered his eyes, not in weakness but in calculation. Children did not need his stare. Declan stood. What Benny's gaze stayed on Declan. Harper is on her way. 10 minutes. Cameras already pulling street views from Royal to the river. No one followed her into the block. I've got men checking the bus station and shelters. Mia had gone very still. Shelters. Bus station. Men. Words could become doors she did not want opened. Declan turned slightly, keeping himself between Benny and the sofa without making it obvious. Quietly. Benny understood. He looked once at the child's bare feet, and something hard passed through his face. Then he was gone. Mia stared at the doorway long after he left. He's big. Yes, Declan said. Is he mad? No. He looks mad. He usually does. That earned the smallest flicker from Mia. Not a smile. Not yet. But the corner of her mouth almost remembered the shape. Sloane took that tiny almost and held it carefully in her chest. Another knock came 20 minutes later, softer than Benny's. Dr. Harper Quinn stepped into the room with rain in her dark curls and a leather medical bag in one hand. She wore no white coat, just jeans, boots, and a navy sweater under a damp trench coat. Her eyes moved quickly from Declan to Sloane to Mia, and whatever question she had brought with her died before it reached her tongue. She set her bag down several feet from the sofa and crouched. "Hi, Mia. I'm Harper." Mia shrank back against the sofa arm. Harper did not move closer. "I'm a doctor. My job is to make sure your body is not having a terrible night without telling anyone." Mia stared. Harper nodded toward the fox. "And who is this?" Mia's voice was almost gone. "Finch. That is a serious name." Mia looked down. "He listens." "Good. I like a professional." Declan stood near the wall arms at his sides. Sloane moved to the window. Harper saw their positions and approved silently. No crowding, no sudden concern, no room full of adult bodies closing in. Harper opened her bag. "I'm going to ask before I do anything. You can say no. You can ask me to stop. You can ask questions." "All right." Mia glanced at Declan. He answered the question she did not ask. "I'll stay. By the door, if that's better." Mia nodded once. Declan moved to the door and stood where she could see him. Harper began with the easiest things, her own cold hands, the rain, Finch's missing eye, the terrible state of New Orleans sidewalks after a storm. Slowly she asked to look at Mia's feet. Mia went rigid. Harper stopped. "No rush." Mia's breathing turned shallow. Declan spoke from the door. "Mia." Her eyes found him instantly. "She cannot help what she cannot see. But nothing happens unless you say yes." Mia swallowed. "Will it hurt?" Harper answered honestly. "Maybe a little. Your feet are very cold. Warming them can sting. But I'll go slowly." Mia looked at Finch. Then she whispered, "Yes." Sloane brought a basin of warm water, moving as if the room were a church, and one wrong sound could shatter glass. When Mia's feet touched the water, her whole body jerked. She bit her lip so hard Harper reached for a cloth before blood came. "You can make noise," Harper said. Mia shook her head. "You can," Harper repeated. "Pain is allowed to have a voice." Mia did not seem to understand. Harper dried the girl's feet with a towel warmed by the fire. She checked the cracked skin, the swelling, the numbness. Then she asked to see Mia's arms. A pause. "Yes." The sleeves came up. Sloane looked away too late. Purple shadows circled Mia's upper arms, too much like fingers. A healed burn marked the inside of one forearm. There was another pale scar near her elbow. Her wrists looked too thin for the hands attached to them. Harper's face stayed calm because a child was watching. Only her voice changed. Can I listen to your breathing? Yes. Can I look at your side? Mia's eyes filled with fear. Declan stepped forward half a step, then stopped. Mia watched the stopping. That mattered. She nodded. Harper lifted the edge of the hoodie just enough. Bruises bloomed along Mia's ribs in different colors. Bold yellow, deep blue, fading brown, a map of repeated harm. Harper pressed lightly near the left side. Mia flinched so hard Finch dropped from her lap. Before anyone could move, Mia lunged for the fox and curled over it. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I dropped him. Sloane knelt instantly, but not too close. Finch is all right. Mia clutched the fox, shaking. Declan's voice came from near the door, lower than before. You did nothing wrong. Mia kept whispering sorry into Finch's worn head. The examination took almost an hour. By the end, Mia sat wrapped in a blanket wearing thick socks that belonged to no child in the building. Harper gave her small sips of water and instructions for food that would not hurt her stomach. Mia nodded at everything, not because she understood, but because agreeing seemed safer than needing more explanation. Harper packed slowly. Can I talk to Declan in the hall? Mia looked up quickly. Is it bad? Harper did not lie. It is serious, but you are here and you are warm and your body is trying very hard to keep going. That is good. Mia blinked. No one had ever praised her body for surviving. Declan stepped into the hallway with Harper and Sloane. The door remained cracked. Harper removed her glasses and rubbed the bridge of her nose. Declan waited. Say it, he said. Harper looked at him. She is severely underweight. Early frost injury in the feet, but I think we caught it before permanent damage. Multiple bruises in different stages of healing. At least 2 healed burns. Possible old rib fracture. Scarring on her back consistent with repeated strikes. Sloane folded her arms around herself. Harper continued. And the way she reacts before anyone touches her tells me this did not happen once. Declan stared at the thin line of light under the door. Who is required to know? Harper's eyes sharpened. You know I have to report this. I know. Then do not make me regret coming here instead of telling you to take her straight to an emergency room. Declan looked at her. The old Declan Cross might have resented the warning. This one only nodded. Do it right. Sloane looked at him surprised. Harper was not. Good. Because if you want to protect her, you cannot just be dangerous. You have to be clean. Benny appeared at the end of the hall, phone in hand. Declan turned. Talk. No missing child report under Mia Carter in Louisiana for the last 30 days. I widened to Mississippi and Texas. Nothing yet. Street cameras caught her coming from the riverside. Alone, barefoot. She crossed Decatur, cut through the alley behind Moreau's, then came here. How long outside? At least 2 days from what we have so far. Maybe more. Sloane closed her eyes. Benny's jaw worked once. There's something else. A clerk at a corner market remembered a little girl near the dumpsters yesterday morning. Said he chased her off because he thought she was stealing. The hallway seemed to lose air. Declan's gaze moved to the door. Inside, Mia coughed once, then whispered, sorry. No one spoke. Benny looked at Declan, waiting for an order. Declan's voice was calm. Find where she slept. Find where she ran from. Do not scare anyone who might talk. Not yet. Benny nodded. And if I find the person who did this? Declan's face went still. Sloane stepped closer. Declan. He did not look at her, but her name touched something in him. He answered Benny without taking his eyes off the door. You bring me the truth first. Benny understood what it cost him to say that. He left. When Declan returned to the suite, Mia had moved to the floor. Not the sofa, not the bed. The floor near the wall where she could see the door, the window, and everyone's feet. Sloane entered behind him carrying a folded set of clothes from staff housing. A soft shirt, cotton pants, A cardigan too large but clean. "There's a bathroom through there," Sloane said. "Hot water, towels. You can wash by yourself or I can wait outside the door." Mia looked toward the bathroom. The open door revealed pale stone warm light, a mirror, a tub. Luxury could frighten a child who had only known punishment. Outside, Mia whispered. Sloane nodded as if that answer were perfectly ordinary. "Outside it is." Mia gathered the clothes and Finch, then stopped. She looked at Declan. "You'll still be here?" "Yes. When I come out?" "Yes." Her eyes searched him. "You won't leave because I take too long?" "No." Mia disappeared into the bathroom. The door clicked but did not latch. Sloane stood beside it, one shoulder against the wall. Water ran, stopped, ran again, stopped. Declan remained in the chair. He could hear Mia moving inside with painful care. A child trying not to use too much water, trying not to make too much sound, trying not to exist incorrectly. Sloane watched him from the bathroom door. "You're doing better than I expected." Declan did not look up. That an insult. "Not tonight." He leaned forward, elbows on knees. "I don't know what to do with her." Sloane's expression softened. "You're doing it. I'm sitting in a chair. She asked you to stay. You stayed." Declan looked toward the bathroom. "That cannot be enough. For tonight it may be everything." The words settled between them. Not romance yet, not comfort. Something quieter. A thread. When Mia came out, her hair hung in damp, uneven strands around her face. The shirt swallowed her shoulders. The pants were rolled at the ankles. Her skin was clean now, but no amount of soap could soften the hollows beneath her cheekbones. She froze when she saw Declan still seated. "You stayed." "I said I would." The sentence moved through her like warmth she did not trust. Sloane brought her back to the sofa, but Mia chose the floor again. This time no one corrected her. Declan set the tray of broth within reach, neither too close nor too far. Mia looked at the bowl. "For me? Yes. Do I have to finish? No." She took the spoon. Each bite was tiny, disciplined, measured. Halfway through, she looked at Sloane. "Can I keep the clothes?" Sloane crouched near the fireplace. "Yes." "For tomorrow, too?" "Yes." Mia stared at the sleeves hanging past her hands. For always, Sloane's throat tightened. "Yes, Mia. For always." The girl looked down quickly as if showing joy might make someone take it back. Declan watched Sloane turn away to fold a towel that did not need folding. Later, when the club downstairs emptied and the last guests vanished into rain-washed streets, Mia still refused the bed. Sloane had dimmed the lamps, but Mia asked for them bright again. Declan turned them all on without comment. Mia curled in the corner nearest the sofa, Finch beneath her chin. Declan's coat pulled over her like armor. Sloane stood at the door. "There's a bed," she said gently. Mia shook her head. "I'm okay here." Declan answered before Sloane could try again. "Then here is fine." Mia's eyes fluttered. She was fighting sleep the way children fight what has betrayed them before. Declan moved toward the door. Her voice stopped him. "Mr. Cross." He turned. No one called him that unless they feared him or wanted something. Mia's eyes were half closed. "Why did you let me in?" The truth rose before he could stop it. Because once a little girl in his life had needed a door opened and no one opened it fast enough. Because power had made him untouchable but not whole. Because her question had found a grave inside him that still had fresh dirt on it. He said only what a child could carry. "Because I heard you." Mia seemed to think about that. Then sleep took her in ragged pieces. Declan stepped into the hallway and left the door almost shut. He should have gone to his office. There were calls waiting, men waiting, problems with names and prices attached. Instead, he dragged a chair from the wall and sat facing Mia's door. Sloane found him there an hour later. Her heels were in one hand. Her hair had loosened from its perfect knot. For once, she looked less like the manager of a room full of dangerous men and more like a woman who had run out of places to hide her heart. "You're still here," she said. Declan's eyes stayed on the strip of light under the door. She asked. Sloane lowered herself into the chair across from him. For a while, neither of them spoke. Below them, the old building settled into its bones. Pipes clicked. Distant laughter faded from the staff stairwell. Somewhere in the kitchen, Gus cursed at a pan left soaking too long. Inside the suite, Mia slept in the corner instead of the bed. Outside, Declan Cross kept watch over a closed door like it was the border of his whole kingdom. Near dawn, a sound came from inside. Not a scream, not crying. A small voice rough with sleep. "Mr. Cross." Declan was on his feet before the second word finished leaving Mia's mouth. He opened the suite door slowly, just enough to let the hallway light spill across the carpet. Mia was still in the corner, wrapped in his coat, Finch tucked beneath her chin. Her eyes were open, but not fully awake. The room was too bright for morning, and too quiet for a child who had survived the dark. "I'm here," he said. She stared at him for a moment as if she needed proof that the night had not swallowed him. "You didn't leave?" "No." "You sat outside?" "Yes." Her fingers moved over Finch's torn ear. Why Declan could have said many things. He could have said because Benny had men downstairs. Because Harper would return before noon. Because Danger had a habit of wearing friendly faces. But none of that belonged in this room with a child still half asleep on the floor. So, he said the simplest truth. "You asked me to stay." Mia thought about that with the careful seriousness of someone studying a rule she had never been allowed to use. "If I ask again, do I get in trouble?" Declan's throat tightened. "No." The answer seemed to confuse her more than comfort her. Sloane appeared behind him in the hallway, still holding her shoes in one hand. She said nothing. Her eyes moved from Declan to Mia, from the chair outside the door to the little girl in the corner, and something in her face softened in a way Declan had rarely seen. Mia looked at Sloane. "Is it morning?" "Almost," Sloane said. "Do I have to go?" Declan stepped into the room but kept his distance. "No." Mia's shoulders lowered by a fraction. It was not trust. Not yet. But it was the first small crack in terror. By sunrise, the Saint and Sable had begun to change around her. The club had always followed Declan's rhythm. Downstairs, the dining room served money and secrets under gold light. The kitchen obeyed Gus Romano's temper and timing. The back halls belonged to Benny's quiet men. The fourth floor belonged to decisions that never made the papers. Now everyone moved more softly. Not because Declan ordered it, because of the child. Mia came downstairs just after 6, wearing the borrowed shirt pants rolled at the ankles and Declan's coat over everything. The sleeves nearly reached her knees. Finch stayed under one arm. She found the kitchen by smell. Butter, coffee, toast. Garlic left from last night's prep. The sharp green scent of parsley being chopped by a young cook who froze when he saw her. Gus Romano looked up from the stove. He was broad, silver-haired, and built like a man who had once settled arguments with his hands before deciding saucepans were more honest company. His reading glasses sat low on his nose. A cigarette he was not allowed to smoke rested behind one ear. The moment he saw Mia, his voice dropped. "Well now," he said. "You're early." Mia looked at the floor. "I can go." Gus pointed at a stool near the pantry wall. "Did I say that? No. Then don't invent trouble in my kitchen. Sit." Mia looked at the stool, then at the trash bins behind her. Gus noticed. He noticed everything worth noticing. He put a pan on the flame and cracked eggs with one hand. "You like eggs?" Mia hesitated. "I don't know." Gus glanced over his shoulder. "That is a tragic sentence. We fix tragic sentences in this kitchen." She did not smile, but she watched him. He moved slowly, not because he was slow, but because he understood a frightened creature could mistake speed for threat. Butter melted. Eggs folded softly. Bread browned in the pan. He sliced a banana and arranged the pieces around the plate like he was feeding royalty. Then he set it on the work table nearest her and sat on an overturned crate several feet away. Mia did not move. Gus picked up a fork and took one bite from the edge of the eggs. "Not poisoned," he said. "Still handsome." That almost did it. The corner of Mia's mouth twitched so quickly most people would have missed it. Gus did not. He turned back to the stove because some things were too fragile to stare at. Mia slid off the stool and approached the plate. She ate standing up. Tiny bites, long pauses, eyes on the room. Halfway through the toast, she wrapped part of it in a napkin and slipped it into the deep pocket of Declan's coat. Gus kept his back turned. Some hunger had to be allowed to keep its hiding place until it learned the pantry would open again. Sloane found them 20 minutes later. Her hair was perfect again. Her navy dress was sharp enough to cut conversation, but in her hand was a paper bag from a corner drugstore. Mia stiffened when Sloane entered. Sloane placed the bag on the table and opened it herself. No sudden offering, no forced gratitude. Inside were socks that might actually fit a toothbrush toothpaste shampoo, a small hairbrush clean underwear, a coloring book, and a box of crayons. Mia stared at the crayons as if Sloane had poured diamonds onto stainless steel. "I wasn't sure which color you liked," Sloane said, "so I bought all of them." Mia reached out one finger and touched the yellow crayon. "Can I use it?" "Yes." "Now if you want." "Do I have to draw good?" Sloane's controlled face flickered. "No, sweetheart. You just have to draw." Mia looked at her, unsure what to do with a world where effort was not a trap. From the kitchen doorway, Declan watched without speaking. He had changed into dark slacks and a charcoal sweater, no tie, no jacket. He looked less formal and somehow more dangerous. The staff felt him before they saw him. Voices lowered. Knives slowed. A pot stopped clanging. Mia noticed the shift. Her body tightened. Declan did not come closer. "Morning," he said. Mia's eyes dropped. "Morning." Gus leaned against the counter. She ate some. Declan nodded. "Good." Mia glanced up quick and nervous, as if praise might turn into a demand. It did not. Declan placed a small pharmacy bag beside Sloane's. "Harper sent ointment for your feet." Mia looked at the bag. "Do I have to put it on?" "Only if you say yes." The kitchen was listening now, trying not to, but listening. Mia's voice went quiet. "Will it make them better?" "Yes." "Then yes." Declan looked at Sloane. Something passed between them. Not romance yet, not even understanding. Only the awareness that a child had just made a brave decision in a kitchen full of adults who had never deserved the word courage as much as she did. The days began to find a rhythm after that. Mia appeared in the kitchen before dawn, always near the same stool, always close enough to the pantry to see what went in and out. Gus taught her the names of spices: cumin, thyme, cayenne, saffron. She repeated them under her breath like spells. "Why does dough rest?" she asked one morning. Gus dusted flour over a board. "Because if you work it too hard, it gets tough." Mia watched the dough under his hands. "People too." Gus paused. Then he kept kneading. "People too." In the afternoon, Sloane took Mia to the 4th floor and sat with her near the window. They read picture books. Mia sounded out words carefully, pressing the pencil so hard it tore the paper when she tried to write her name. She gasped. "I ruined it." Sloane slid a fresh page across the table. Paper is made for trying again. Mia looked at the tear, but I wasted it. No. Sloane placed the pencil gently in Mia's hand. You used it. Mia stared at her fingers around the pencil. I used to get in trouble for using too much. Sloane's face stayed calm, but her voice softened. Too much what? Mia shrugged. Soap, water, food, time. Sloane could not speak for a moment. Outside the window, rain slid over the city in silver lines. Downstairs, a trumpet began practicing before dinner service. The notes rose, bent, fell, and rose again. Sloane reached for a new page. Here you can use as much time as you need. Mia bent over the paper again. This time her name came out crooked but whole. Mia. She touched the letters with one finger. That's me. Yes, Sloane said. Something fierce moved through her chest. That's you. Benny Walsh won Mia over by accident. For the first week, she avoided him like a storm cloud. He was too big, too scarred, too silent. His hands looked capable of breaking things without effort. The first time he stepped into the kitchen while she was eating, she dropped her spoon and backed into the cabinets. Benny froze. Then he did the only thing he could think of. He left. After that, he changed his ways around her. He knocked on open doors. He said his name before entering. He announced himself in hallways. Benny coming through. Behind you, kid. Door opening. Always the same words. Always the same tone. Mia began to expect him. Expectation became less frightening than surprise. One afternoon, she sat on the rug in Declan's office with her coloring book spread open. Declan worked behind his desk, signing papers he was not reading. Sloane stood near the bookshelves reviewing menus. Benny entered with a file. He stopped when he saw the crayons scattered across the rug. Mia dropped one beneath Declan's desk and crawled forward to reach it. Benny bent without thinking and picked it up. She recoiled. Benny stopped mid-movement. The yellow crayon rested between his scarred fingers. No one breathed. Then he slowly lowered himself until his hand was near the floor, not above her. Yellow, he said. Mia looked at the crayon, then at his hand, then at the crescent-shaped scar across his knuckle. She reached out and took it. Their fingers brushed for less than a second. She did not pull away. Benny straightened carefully as if one wrong movement could break the air. Sloane looked down at the menu to hide her smile. Declan saw everything. At night, the damage came back. The first nightmare tore through the fourth floor like a siren. Declan was out of his chair before the second scream. He reached Mia's room, barefoot, shirt untucked, gun in hand by instinct. He stopped outside the door, forced the gun behind his back, then pushed in. Mia was in the corner, not just afraid. Gone. Her eyes were open but not seeing the room. Finch was crushed to her chest. She rocked so hard her shoulder hit the wall. No, please, I'll be quiet. Don't put me down there. I'll be good. I'll be good. Declan stopped 3 feet away. Harper's instructions returned to him. No grabbing, no sudden touch, no crowding. He crouched. Mia, listen to my voice. She sobbed harder. Sloane appeared behind him, breathless robe tied over her nightclothes. Benny stood in the hall, huge and helpless. Gus came last, face gray flour, still on one sleeve. Declan kept his voice low. You're at the Saint and Sable. 4th floor. Your room. The blue lamp is on the table. Your red socks are by the chair. Sloane left your book on the dresser. Gus burned toast this morning because he was talking too much. From the hallway, Gus whispered, It was not burned. Sloane gave him a look. Mia's rocking slowed. Declan stayed where he was. The door is open. The lights are on. You are not in a basement. Her eyes found him. At the word basement, her face collapsed. I screamed. Yes, I tried not to. I know. I'm sorry. No. He rose slowly and turned on every light in the room. Lamp, bathroom, overhead. The warm glow filled every corner until darkness had nowhere left to stand. Then Declan sat on the floor with his back against the wall. Mia stared at him. What are you doing staying? Why? He looked ahead, not at her. Because nobody should be scared alone. Sloane stood in the doorway with one hand pressed to her chest. Mia said nothing after that. Little by little, her breathing eased. At some point, she crawled just close enough for one small hand to grip the edge of Declan's sleeve. He did not move until morning. The next day, Mia came to his office on her own. Declan was at his desk. Sloane sat on the sofa sorting through paperwork, pretending not to watch him watch the door every 30 seconds. Mia appeared in the gap. Can I come in? Declan set down his pen. Yes. She stepped inside with Finch under her arm. Sloane began to rise. Mia looked at her. Can you stay? Sloane sat back down. Of course. Mia climbed into the chair opposite Declan's desk. Her feet did not touch the floor. She twisted Finch's torn ear around one finger until Declan wanted to reach out and stop her before she unraveled the toy completely. But he did not. The silence opened. Mia filled it with a voice so small the room leaned in to hear. My mom's name was Rachel. Declan's hands stilled. She died when I was born. My dad said she loved me anyway. He said she picked Finch before I came. Mia looked down at the fox. He used to say she wanted me. Sloane's eyes shone. Declan said nothing. Mia continued. My dad died too. At the docks. A machine fell. A lady came to the house and told Aunt Tara. I remember her shoes were wet. She swallowed. I went to live with Aunt Tara. At first she was nice. She let me sleep in a bed. She made pancakes. She called me baby girl sometimes. Her voice flattened. Then she married Ray. The name entered the room like smoke under a door. Declan's jaw tightened. Mia did not look at him. At first he smiled a lot. He brought flowers. He said I was sweet. Then he moved in. She spoke slowly as if each word had a splinter in it. He yelled at the TV, at the sink, at Aunt Tara, at me. If I dropped things, if I asked questions, if I looked at him wrong. She touched the side of her face without thinking. The first time he hit me, I spilled juice. I tried to clean it with my sleeve. He said I made it worse. Sloane looked away. Mia kept going. If I ate fast, I was greedy. If I ate slow, I was wasting food. If I cried, I was ugly. If I was quiet, I was sneaky. I tried being good different ways. Her eyes lifted to Declan. None of the tears had fallen yet, but it never worked. Declan felt something inside him go cold and precise. What about Tara? Mia's face changed. Not fear, betrayal. She saw. Sometimes she put cream on my arms when he was asleep. Sometimes she cried. She said he was under stress. Sloane's mouth tightened. Mia looked back at Finch. There was a basement. Declan heard Sloane inhale. Mia's shoulders folded inward. When he wanted me to learn, he put me down there. No windows, just pipes and boxes and a smell like dirt water. If he turned the light off, I couldn't see my hands. Her voice thinned. At first I screamed. Then he said screaming made it longer. Declan looked at the desk because for a moment he could not trust his face. He used a belt, Mia whispered. And cigarettes when I cried too much. Sloane stood and walked to the window, one hand covering her mouth. Mia hurried on the way, children do when they think their pain is becoming inconvenient. I got better. I learned which floorboards made noise. I learned how to wash my plate. I learned where to hide Finch. I learned not to ask for shoes. Declan's eyes lifted. One night I heard Ray talking to Aunt Tara. He lost money. A lot. He said I cost too much. He said if she wanted to keep me, I should be useful. Mia's hands trembled. He said he knew men who paid for girls my age. The room went silent. Even the city outside seemed to stop moving. I didn't understand everything Mia said, but I understood enough. She told them how she waited until Ray passed out on the couch, how Tara shut the bedroom door and did not come out, how Mia climbed through the basement window and cut her knee on the frame, how she walked without shoes, how she slept behind a grocery store, how people stared and told her to move, how nobody asked where she came from. Then she looked at Declan. I saw your club. All the windows were warm. People inside looked like they belonged somewhere. Her voice broke at last. I thought if I asked the right way, maybe somebody would let me belong a little. Declan rose. Mia flinched. He stopped immediately. Then he walked around the desk slowly and lowered himself to one knee in front of her. He opened his arms. He did not pull. He did not demand. He simply offered. Mia stared at him as if the gesture were impossible. Then she leaned forward. The moment her small body touched his chest, Declan Cross had to gather every violent thing inside him and lock it behind his ribs. She weighed almost nothing. Her hands clung to his sweater like she expected the world to drag her back if she loosened her grip. He held her gently. He will never touch you again, Declan said. Mia shook against him. You are not going back, even if he has papers, especially then. Sloane turned from the window. Her eyes met Declan's over Mia's bowed head. There was no softness in his face now, only promise. Later, when Mia had fallen asleep on the office sofa with Finch tucked beneath her chin, Sloane followed Declan into the hallway. The door stayed open behind them. Declan. He stopped. You cannot kill him. His expression did not change. He tried to sell a child. I know. He burned her. I know. He locked her underground. I know. Sloane stepped closer. If you make this a war, Ray becomes a victim on paper, and Mia becomes a child caught between dangerous men. Declan's eyes were black with fury. You think I care how he looks on paper? I think you care whether a judge sends her back because you could not control yourself. That landed. Declan looked away. Sloane lowered her voice. Protect her right. Not just hard. For a long moment, the hallway held only the old building's quiet sounds. Then Declan looked through the open office door at Mia, sleeping beneath Sloane's cardigan, one hand still holding Finch. When he spoke, his voice was low enough to be a vow. Then we build a case. Declan said it like a man agreeing to keep a knife in its sheath while the blade screamed to be used. Sloane stood in the hallway beside him, close enough to hear the restraint in his breathing. The office door remained open behind them. Inside, Mia slept curled on the sofa beneath Sloane's cardigan. Finch tucked under her chin, one bare hand resting against the torn fox, as if the toy were the last bridge back to the world. Declan watched her through the gap. He had built his life on certainty. Debts got paid. Enemies got warned once. Men who crossed him learned that mercy had a price and usually arrived too late. But Mia Carter had turned every rule inside out. She had walked into his club with bleeding feet and asked for room, and now the most dangerous man in New Orleans was standing still because a child needed him not to become the kind of danger she already knew. Sloane touched his sleeve. It was light, barely there. Still, Declan looked down at her hand as if contact from her could change the weather. Let Harper file the report, she said. Let Benny gather proof. Let the law see what Ray is before Ray gets a chance to perform. Declan's mouth tightened. Men like him always perform. Then we make sure the audience sees the blood under the costume. For the first time that night, something almost like approval moved through his eyes. You always this poetic when you are ordering me around. Sloane released his sleeve. Only when you are considering homicide. He looked back into the office. Mia shifted in her sleep and murmured something too soft to understand. Declan's face closed again. "Find Benny," he said. "Tell him I want everything quiet. No threats, no visits, no broken doors." Sloane studied him. "And you, I'm going to sit in my office until she wakes up." That is not an answer. His gaze returned to hers. "It is the safest one I have." By the next evening, the Saint and Sable had returned to its polished mask. The dining room glowed beneath amber chandeliers. Crystal glasses caught the light. Waiters moved through the room with trays balanced like offerings. A trumpet played low near the stage, bending the air around notes that sounded almost blue. Outside New Orleans had been washed clean by rain. The streets shone black beneath passing cars. Gas lamps flickered along the quarter. Tourists laughed too loudly under umbrellas, unaware that behind the velvet curtains of the most exclusive club in the city, a little girl sat in the kitchen learning how to dust flour across a cutting board. Mia stood on a stool beside Gus Romano, wearing a blue apron folded twice around her waist. Flour marked her cheek. Her hair had been brushed by Sloane that morning carefully in sections with long pauses whenever Mia's shoulders began to rise. Gus placed a ball of dough in front of her. "Gentle," he said. "You do not beat dough, you convince it." Mia pressed both hands into it. "It is sticky. Good dough usually is." "Why?" "Because things worth keeping often make a mess first." Mia looked at her hands, then at the flour on her sleeve. "I made a mess." Gus lifted one brow. "Did I sound mad?" "No." "Then do not do my feelings for me. I am very qualified to be dramatic on my own." Mia's mouth twitched. From the service doorway, Sloane watched the almost smile arrive and vanish. She kept still. Joy, like fear, could flee if startled. Mia reached for a piece of mozzarella. Why does this one stretch Gus grated Parmesan with the grave seriousness of a priest handling relics? Because mozzarella has ambition. Parmesan has dignity. Mia stared at him. That does not explain it. It explains plenty. She let out a small breath that might have become a laugh if the world had not interrupted. The plate in her hand slipped. It hit the tile and shattered. Every head in the kitchen turned. Mia did not blink. Her face had gone white. Not pale. White. Drained so completely that the flour on her cheek looked bright against her skin. Gus followed her stare through the small service window that looked into the front of house. A man stood at the host stand, tall, thin, cheap gray suit made to look expensive by posture alone. Dark hair slicked back from a narrow face. A smile polished smooth enough to fool people who wanted to be fooled. Mia's lips parted. No sound came out. Gus stepped in front of her line of sight. "Mia." She did not hear him. The man at the host stand leaned toward the hostess with the sorrowful charm of a man rehearsed in public concern. "I am looking for my niece," he said. "Mia Carter. Blonde hair, blue eyes. Sweet little thing. She ran away from home and we have been worried sick." The hostess. Maria glanced at the papers he placed on the stand. Her training told her to smile. Her instinct told her not to. "I am sorry, sir," she said carefully. "I do not know anyone by that name." The man's smile held. "Maybe ask your manager. She gets confused. Tells stories when she is frightened. Poor kid has been through a lot." Sloane was already moving. She stepped out of the service corridor and crossed the dining room with calm precision. Guests looked up as she passed. Sloane did not hurry until she was out of sight. She never gave predators the pleasure of watching fear work. At the host stand, she stopped beside Maria. The man turned his smile on her. It was the kind of smile Sloane had spent years learning to distrust. "And you are?" she asked. "Ray Mercer." He placed one hand over his chest as if grief had manners. "Mia's guardian." Sloane's eyes moved to the papers, but not her hands. "Legal guardian." "That is right." Ray gave a small, tired laugh. "Her aunt is my wife. We have custody. Mia has emotional issues. She lost both parents young. Sometimes she runs. Sometimes she says things that are not true." Sloane looked at his face. "Not the papers. The face. Convenient." His smile tightened by 1 degree. "I am sorry. Children who tell the truth are often called confused by the adults who hurt them." For a moment the mask slipped. It was quick, but Sloane saw the anger flash beneath the concern. Then Ray recovered. "I do not appreciate the implication. I did not expect you to." Across the dining room, conversations began thinning. Guests sensed pressure without knowing its source. A man in a navy suit at table 6 stopped mid-sentence. A woman near the piano lowered her wine glass. Ray's voice dropped. "Miss, I am trying to bring a missing child home." Sloane stepped closer. "What home?" His eyes sharpened. Before he could answer, the room shifted. Declan Cross entered from the private hallway. He wore a black suit and no expression at all. The trumpet kept playing, but the note seemed to lose courage halfway through. Ray turned. He recognized Declan at once. Everyone in New Orleans did, even those who pretended they did not. "Mr. Cross, I assume." Ray extended his hand. Declan looked at it. He did not take it. Ray lowered his hand slowly, smile fixed in place by pride. "I apologize for coming during service. I am looking for my niece." "Mia Carter. I was told someone may have seen her here." Declan stopped in front of him. "There is no child here for you." Ray blinked. The sentence had been too direct for his performance. "With respect, I have guardianship documents." Declan's gaze drifted to the papers. "You have paper." Ray leaned in slightly. "That paper gives me legal authority." Declan's eyes returned to his face. "Authority is not the same as a right." The words landed softly, but every person close enough to hear them understood the danger in their quiet. Ray's charm thinned. "She is a disturbed little girl. She lies when she is upset. Her aunt is falling apart. We just want her home." Sloane did not miss the word "just." Men like Ray used small words to hide large sins. Declan said nothing. Ray tried another angle. "I understand how this might look. She can be convincing, but she belongs with family." Declan's head tilted. "Belongs, one word." Ray sensed the mistake too late. "You know what I mean." "No," Declan said. "I do not think I do." The dining room had gone almost silent. Waiters stood still with trays in hand. Maria kept her eyes on the reservation book, though she had not turned a page in minutes. Near the bar, Benny appeared with the calm inevitability of a locked door. Ray glanced around. He noticed Benny. Then 2 more men by the side exits. Then Sloane still close enough to hear everything. His voice hardened beneath the polish. "You have no authority to keep a child from her guardian." Declan stepped closer. "You have 10 seconds to walk out of my club." Ray's mouth opened, then closed. Declan continued. "At 11 you will be carried." A flush crept up Ray's neck. "This is not over." "No," Declan said. "It is not." Ray gathered the papers with hands that were almost steady. At the door he turned back. His eyes found Declan's. "She is mine." Benny moved before the last word fully cooled in the air. He was beside Ray in an instant, one hand near his elbow, not touching yet, making the choice visible. Ray looked at that hand, then at Benny's face, and understood survival well enough to leave on his own. The front doors opened. Rain-scented air slipped in. Ray Mercer disappeared into the night. Declan stood still for one beat too long. Then he turned toward the kitchen. Gus had taken Mia into the dry storage room. She sat on an overturned crate between sacks of flour and shelves of canned tomatoes, folded so tightly around Finch that she looked painful to hold together. Gus crouched near her, one large hand braced on a shelf, his face gray with helpless rage. She saw him, Gus said. Mia rocked in place. He found me. He found me. He found me. Declan lowered himself to the concrete floor several feet away. Mia. No response. He found me. Mia. Her eyes lifted at last. There was no childish panic in them now, only resignation. That was what nearly undid him. Not fear of what might happen, but the certainty that safety had been temporary all along. He always comes back, she whispered. Declan placed his open hand on the floor between them, palm up. Choice. Always choice. He left without you. He will bring police. Then we will talk to police. He will bring papers. Then we will bring truth. Her chin trembled. Everybody says no until they give me back. Declan's voice went lower. I am not everybody. Tears filled her eyes. You do not know him. I know enough. He smiles first. Declan held her gaze. So do snakes. That startled the smallest broken breath from her. Not laughter, not even close, but the sentence cut through the loop of terror enough for her to see him again. Mia looked at his hand. Then she launched forward and caught his sweater in both fists. The sobs came out hard, not quiet, not hidden. Great tearing sounds dragged from some locked place inside her. Declan wrapped his arms around her and held on. Gus turned away, pressing one hand over his mouth. In the doorway, Sloane watched Declan Cross kneeling on a storage room floor, letting a child soak his shirt with tears, and she felt something in her carefully guarded heart step too close to a flame. Later that night, Mia slept in the fourth-floor suite with every lamp on. Harper had checked her pulse and breathing. Gus had refused to leave until she finished half a bowl of broth. Benny had put men on every entrance without letting the hallway feel like a prison. Sloane sat beside the bed until Mia's fingers loosened around Finch. Declan was in his office when Benny came in with the first file. Benny placed it on the desk. Ray Mercer, 49. Married Tara Carter 3 years ago. Worked construction, then security, then nothing steady. Gambling debts across Louisiana and Mississippi. Private lenders, too. Declan opened the file. Benny continued. Prior domestic complaints. First wife filed once, then left the state before court. Charge disappeared. 2 bar fights. 1 assault pled down. Nothing that stuck hard. Sloane stood near the bookshelves, arms folded. And Mia. No school records in the last year, Benny said. No pediatric visits. No dental. State support checks meant for her kept coming. Money went out at casinos, liquor stores, cash withdrawals. Declan turned a page. His face did not change. That made Sloane more nervous. Benny set down a second folder. I found the old house outside Algiers, rented under Tara's name. One neighbor remembers hearing crying. Said Ray told people the kid had night terrors. Another remembers seeing Mia in winter without shoes. Sloane closed her eyes. Did anyone report it? Benny's silence was answer enough. Declan's hand flattened over the file. There is more, Benny said. Declan looked up. Say it. Ray has been asking questions in bars, not about shelters, not about runaway kids. The room tightened. About buyers. Sloane's face drained. Benny placed a printed record on the desk. One name came up twice. Man out of Baton Rouge. Moves girls through fake domestic placements. We do not have enough to hand to court yet. But Ray is desperate. He owes money by Friday. Declan stood and crossed to the window. Below, New Orleans glittered wet and bright, all music and hunger and old sins dressed for dinner. Benny waited. "You want him gone?" Sloane looked sharply at Declan. The old answer hovered in the room. Yes. Gone. Forever. Declan stared at his reflection in the glass. Behind his own face, he saw Mia in the storage room, Mia in the rain, Mia asking if she could save bread, Mia flinching because a man stood too fast. "No," he said. Benny understood immediately. "You want him to move. I want proof no judge can ignore." Sloane exhaled quietly. Declan turned from the window. "Watch the club. Watch the river. Watch Tara. Watch every man Ray owes money to. But do not touch him unless he reaches for her." Benny nodded. "And if he does?" Declan's eyes went cold. "Then he belongs to the case first." Benny left. Sloane remained. The office settled into silence. Declan poured bourbon into a glass and did not drink it. Sloane crossed the room and took it from his hand. She set it on the desk. "You chose the harder road." His mouth curved without humor. "You have been enjoying saying that lately, because it keeps being true." He looked at her, then really looked. Sloane Avery had spent years beside him running his club, reading his mood standing between drunk politicians and frightened waitresses, never asking for more than he offered, and never letting him offer less than respect. She was elegance, with a spine of steel. A woman who could lower a room's temperature with one glance, and still remember which server's mother was sick. Declan stepped closer. "You are not afraid of me." Sloane held his gaze. "I am afraid of what you can become when you think love gives you permission." The word love struck the air. Neither of them moved. Declan's voice changed. "You think that is what this is? I think you sat outside a door all night because a child asked you to stay. I think you know exactly what this is." He looked toward the hallway. "And you," Sloane's expression guarded itself too late. "I think Mia needs every adult in this building to choose her without making her carry the weight of being chosen." "That is not what I asked." "No," she said softly. "It is the answer I can afford." The space between them tightened. Rain whispered against the office windows. Downstairs, the last set had ended. The club was quieting into night. Declan lifted one hand, not touching her, only close enough that she could feel the decision. Sloane did not step back. Then a floorboard creaked. Both turned. Mia stood in the doorway in oversized socks, Finch tucked under one arm, eyes heavy with fear and sleep. "Can I sit where the light is?" Declan stepped away from Sloane at once. "Yes." Sloane's face softened. "Come here, sweetheart." Mia crossed to the small sofa near the lamp and curled into the corner. Declan took the chair across from her. Sloane sat on the rug nearby, smoothing the edge of Mia's blanket over her feet. No one spoke for a while. Mia's eyelids lowered. The room held them in its quiet circle. The crime lord, the woman who kept him human, the child who did not yet understand that the whole building had begun to breathe around her. Across the street inside a parked sedan darkened by rain, Ray Mercer watched the fourth-floor windows. His face no longer held the mask of concern. He put a phone to his ear. "She is there," he said. A pause. "No. Cross will not hand her over." Another pause. Ray's mouth twisted. "I do not care who he is." He looked up at the warm square of light where Mia slept under guard. His voice dropped. "Get the girl. Do not mark her face. She is worth more clean." Ray Mercer watched the fourth-floor windows until the rain blurred them into gold. Inside, the saint and sable Mia slept beneath a lamp that never went out. Declan sat in the chair across from her, his jacket folded over one arm, his eyes on the hallway door. Sloane had fallen asleep on the small sofa near the window with one hand still resting on the edge of Mia's blanket. Benny stood outside with two men at the private stairwell, silent as stone. The building seemed calm. It was not. By morning, every entrance to the Saint and Sable had eyes on it, not obvious ones. Declan hated obvious fear. A man reading a newspaper near the corner, a florist van parked too long across the street, a waiter smoking behind the service door with no cigarette between his fingers. Benny had placed them all without letting the club feel like a cage. Mia knew something had changed anyway. Children who survive monsters learn the temperature of rooms. At breakfast, she sat on her stool in Gus's kitchen, Finch tucked against her side, watching adults look away from her too quickly. Gus set a small plate of scrambled eggs in front of her. Eat before the eggs get offended. Mia picked up the fork but did not eat. Is he outside? The kitchen stilled. Gus looked toward Sloane, who stood near the coffee station. Sloane came closer and lowered herself to Mia's level. Ray is not inside this building. Mia's fingers tightened around the fork. That is not what I asked. Sloane took the hit without flinching. No, we do not know where he is right now. Mia looked at the back door. Declan had just entered the kitchen, but he stopped before Mia saw him. Sloane's honesty hung in the air between them, sharp and necessary. Mia whispered, "He always waits." Declan stepped into view. "Then we wait better." She turned toward him. That should not have comforted her. It did. Not because she believed danger was gone. She did not. But because Declan did not pretend it was. He did not dress fear in pretty words and call it safety. He looked at the dark shape in the corner and named it. Mia took one bite of eggs. Gus released a breath like a prayer and pretended to curse at the stove. For 4 days, Ray did not come. The city kept moving. Brass bands played under wet balconies. Tourists carried plastic cups through streets older than their country. The river rolled brown and patient beyond the levee. The Saint and Sable opened every night as if its walls were not holding a child whose name had become a secret. Mia stayed close to the kitchen. Some mornings she asked Gus questions about food. Why does stew take so long? Because rushing flavor is a crime. Is that a real law? In my kitchen, yes. Other mornings, she said nothing at all. Sloane brought her books and taught her to sound out words near the office window. Benny continued announcing himself in hallways. Benny coming through. Behind you, kid. Door opening. Mia no longer jumped every time, only most times. Declan noticed each one. At night, the 4th floor lights stayed on. Mia sometimes slept in the bed now, but only if Declan sat beside the door until her breathing softened. Twice she woke and moved to the corner before dawn. No one scolded her. No one asked why. The corner was not defeat. It was where her fear knew how to survive. On the 5th afternoon, sunlight broke through the clouds for the first time all week. It changed the city. The wet streets flashed silver. The riverfront market opened beneath bright awnings. Musicians gathered near the levee with trumpets, washboards, and old songs. Vendors sold pralines, roasted pecans, paper cones of fried shrimp, and coffee strong enough to wake the dead. Mia stood by the kitchen window watching people move through the light. Gus saw her looking. You want air? She turned fast. Outside. Unless you know a better place to keep air. Sloane looked up from the prep table. Declan stood near the doorway reading a message from Benny. Mia glanced at him. Can I? The question was small but not the same as before. Before she asked as if permission could become punishment. Now there was something else inside it. Want. Declan looked at Benny, who had appeared in the hall without making a sound. Benny gave the smallest nod. Men were already outside. 2 near the market. 1 by the corner. 1 by the river steps. 1 in a parked sedan with a clear view of the street. Declan looked back at Mia. Yes. Her face opened then closed again quickly, as if joy needed to be hidden before anyone changed the rules. Sloane helped her into the red coat she had bought 2 days earlier. The sleeves fit. The buttons were shaped like little moons. Mia had stared at it for almost 10 minutes when Sloane first gave it to her. Is it borrowed? No. For guests? No. For me? Yes. For always. Sloane had needed a moment before answering. For always. Now Mia slipped her arms into the coat with careful reverence. She wore the new boots, 2 red leather softened by Sloane's hands the night before. Finch came along tucked under one arm. Gus grabbed his coat and a paper bag of candied pecans. Declan crouched in front of Mia near the back hallway. You stay with Gus. Mia nodded. If you feel scared, you tell him. She nodded again. Declan held her gaze. You do not have to be polite to danger. Mia absorbed that. What if danger smiles? Declan's eyes hardened. Especially then. Gus cleared his throat. You done terrifying the child with wisdom? Declan stood. Bring her back before dusk. Gus snorted. I was raising boys with worse manners than you before your voice changed. Mia looked between them. For the first time that day she smiled. Small. Real. It left quickly, but Declan saw it. The riverfront market was only 2 blocks away. Gus walked on Mia's street side, big body between her and the road. He carried coffee in one hand and the paper bag in the other. Mia held the edge of his coat not tightly, but enough. The city felt too large around her. Music rose near the levee. A trumpet cried sweet and bright over the rush of passing cars. Someone laughed behind her. A bicycle bell rang. Mia's shoulders jumped. Gus slowed. Too much Mia looked ashamed. A little. Then we make the world smaller. He guided her to the quieter side of the market near a railing overlooking the river. A gull landed on a post and screamed at nothing. Mia watched it. He is angry. That bird owes money. She looked up at Gus. Birds do not owe money. You do not know that. She almost laughed again. Gus handed her 1 candied pecan. She took it, smelled it first, then bit into it. Sugar stuck to her lip. She wiped it quickly. Gus pretended not to see. They walked past a woman selling flowers, then a man with jars of honey, then a table full of painted wooden toys. Mia stopped in front of a small carved fox. Her hand rose, then fell. Gus noticed. You like it? She looked away. It is okay. That was not the question. It costs money. Everything costs money. Some things are still allowed to be wanted. Mia stared at the fox. Gus picked it up and paid the vendor before Mia could argue. She looked panicked. I did not ask. I know. That is why I bought it before you could ruin the moment with manners. He placed the wooden fox in her hand. Mia held it beside Finch. It can be his friend. Every fox needs a questionable associate. Mia smiled again. This time it lasted almost 2 seconds. Then the black van turned the corner. Gus saw it first in the reflection of a shop window. Too fast. Too close to the curb. His face changed before Mia understood why. The van jumped the curb in a spray of dirty water. People shouted. The side door slid open. Gus shoved Mia behind him so hard she stumbled backward into a crate of oranges. They spilled across the pavement, bright and rolling. Run to the flower stand, Gus barked. Mia could not move. The first man came out of the van wearing a dark hoodie and gloves. The second followed close behind, eyes already fixed on the little girl in the red coat. Gus stepped into their path. He was old enough to know his body would hurt later, and angry enough not to care. The first man reached around him. Gus hit him. The sound cracked through the market. The man's head snapped sideways, and he slammed into the van door. The second man drove a fist into Gus's ribs. Air left him in a rough burst. He stayed standing. The man hit him again. Gus went down on one knee. Mia screamed. The first man recovered and lunged toward her. His hand caught the sleeve of her red coat. Mia twisted away, clutching Finch and the wooden fox against her chest. Her boots slipped on wet pavement. The man grabbed again. Before he reached her, a body crossed the space between them. One of Benny's men came from behind the flower stand and caught the attacker around the throat, dragging him backward. Another came from the parked sedan, fast and silent, slamming the second man against the side of the van hard enough to dent metal. A third blocked the driver before he could throw the van into reverse. The market erupted. Vendors shouted. A woman screamed. Someone dropped a tray of pralines. The trumpet cut off mid-note. Mia stood frozen among the oranges. The man who had grabbed her coat kicked and cursed as Benny's guard pinned him to the pavement. Gus staggered upright, one hand pressed against his ribs, blood on his lip. "Kid," he rasped. "Mia." She stared at the van. The open door looked black inside, basement black. Benny arrived from the river steps at a dead run. He stopped several feet from Mia and dropped into a crouch. "Mia, it is me." She did not blink. "They were going to put me in there." Benny kept his hands visible. "They did not. They touched my coat." "I know. They were going to take Finch." "They did not." Her teeth began to chatter. Gus came toward her limping. Benny looked at him. "You are hurt." Gus wiped blood from his mouth with the back of his hand. "I have had worse from a soup pot." "Sit down. Check the kid." "I am checking the kid. Check better." Mia's eyes finally left the van and found Gus's face. "You are bleeding." Gus tried to smile. "Only because I am dramatic. I am sorry." His expression broke. "No." The word came out rougher than he intended. Mia flinched. Gus immediately lowered himself, wincing until he was closer to her height. He held out both hands, palms up, the way he had seen Declan do. "No more sorry from you today. Not for this, not for me, not for breathing too loud, not for being hard to steal. You hear me?" Mia stared at his open hands. Then she stepped into him. Gus wrapped his arms around her red coat and held her like something sacred and breakable. Benny turned away because the sight hit him in a place no knife had ever reached. One of his men approached with a phone. Found this on the first one. Benny took it. A message lit the screen. His face went empty. That was worse than anger. He called Declan. Declan answered before the first ring finished. "Report." Benny looked at Mia clinging to Gus at the fallen oranges, at the black van, at the men bound on the pavement. They moved. Riverfront Market. Mia is safe. Gus took hits, but he is standing. Silence. And Benny read the screen again. "We have a text from Ray." Declan's voice dropped. "Read it." Benny did. "Get the girl. Do not mark her face. She is worth more clean." The river wind moved cold through the market. Declan said nothing for 3 seconds. When he spoke, his voice was quiet enough to turn Benny's blood cold. "Bring them in." Benny ended the call. He looked at his men. No sirens, no noise. Separate cars. One for the 2 who tried to take her, one for Gus and Mia. Clean route back. Gus lifted his head. "I am not riding like a patient." Benny looked at the blood on his mouth. "You are riding like a man who wants to keep his teeth." Mia pulled back enough to look at Gus. "Please." Gus stopped arguing. The ride back to the Saint and Sable took 7 minutes. Mia sat between Gus and one of Benny's men in the back seat. She held Finch in one hand and the wooden fox in the other. Her red coat sleeve was torn where the attacker had grabbed it. She kept looking at the tear. Gus saw. "Sloan can fix that." Mia whispered. "It is ruined." "No, it is." "Mia, I have burned sauces worth more than that coat and still serve dinner with my head high." She looked at him. "You burned sauce once. In 1989. Nobody has forgotten because everyone is cruel." She wanted to smile. Her mouth tried and failed. At the private entrance, Declan was waiting. He had not put on a coat. His shirt sleeves were rolled to the forearms. Rain misted around him in the alley, but he stood like he did not feel weather. Mia saw him through the car window. The door opened. She was out before anyone could stop her. She ran straight into him. Declan bent and caught her, lifting her against his chest as her arms locked around his neck. "They came back," she whispered. "I know. They tried to take me. They failed." Her face pressed into his shoulder. "I did not run." Declan closed his eyes. "You survived." I froze. "You survived." Her fingers dug into his shirt. My coat tore. Sloane appeared at the doorway and heard the tremor in Mia's voice. She came forward slowly. "We can mend fabric." Mia looked at her. "Can you—" "Yes." Sloane touched the torn sleeve with 2 fingers. "And if the stitch shows, it only proves the coat stayed with you." Mia thought about that. Then she nodded once, not because she was calm, but because the adults around her had not collapsed into panic. They were holding the room steady, so she borrowed steadiness from them. Declan carried her upstairs. Harper was already waiting with her medical bag. She checked Mia first, then Gus. Gus protested until Harper pressed 2 fingers against his bruised ribs. He made a sound like a dying trumpet. Harper looked at him. "Still fine." Gus glared. "I dislike you professionally." "Good. Sit." Mia watched from the bed while Harper cleaned the blood from Gus's lip. "Is he hurt because of me?" Gus turned so fast Harper nearly dropped the gauze. "No. But they hit him because I was there. They hit me because they were stupid and I was available." Mia did not look convinced. Declan sat beside the bed. "Mia." She turned. "Ray chose this. The men in the van chose this. Gus chose to protect you. Those are their choices, not yours." She gripped Finch. "Ray said I make things happen." Ray lied. Her eyes searched his face. Declan held still under that search. "He lied," he said again. Something in her loosened. Not enough to stop shaking. Enough to breathe. When the room quieted, Mia refused to let Declan leave. He did not try. Sloane dimmed only 1 lamp. The rest stayed on. Gus was sent downstairs under protest. Harper stayed in the outer room to write notes. Benny disappeared with a silence that meant work had begun. Mia slept with 1 hand wrapped around Declan's wrist. Even in sleep, her fingers twitched every few minutes to make sure he had not vanished. Near midnight, Declan eased free. Sloane stood by the window. "She is asleep," she whispered. "Not all of her." Sloane looked at the bed. Mia's face was turned toward the light. Finch rested beneath her chin. The wooden fox lay beside him, new and smooth against old, worn fabric. "She smiled today," Sloane said. Declan's eyes closed briefly. "I know, for 2 seconds. I know." And then he tried to take that too. Declan looked toward the door. "He gave us what we needed." Sloane faced him. "Do not let that be the only thing you see. It is not." But his voice had already gone distant. Cold. Sloane stepped in front of him. "Declan." He stopped. "If you walk into that room as vengeance, you may not come back as the man she reached for tonight." His eyes met hers. "I know exactly who I am." "No," Sloane said softly. "You know who you had to become. That is not the same thing." The words struck deeper than she expected. For a moment, the room held them too close. Declan's anger, Sloane's fear, Mia's breathing. The old ache between a man built for violence and a woman asking him to choose something harder. Declan lifted 1 hand and brushed his thumb lightly over Sloane's cheek. Not possession. not demand. A question. Sloan did not move away. His voice roughened. "Stay with her. I was already going to." He nodded and left. The abandoned seafood warehouse sat near a dead stretch of river road where tourists did not wander, and city lights arrived tired. Ray Mercer was brought in just after 1 in the morning. He fought until he saw Declan standing beneath the single hanging light. Then he stopped. Benny sat him in a metal chair at a metal table. No blood, no spectacle. Just a recorder, a folder, and a lawyer named Maris Bell who looked bored enough to be lethal. Ray tried to laugh. "This is kidnapping." Maris clicked on the recorder. "Interesting first statement." Ray looked at her. "Who the hell are you?" "The person making sure your confession is admissible if you are smart and useful if you are not." Declan placed the phone on the table. The text message glowed on the screen. Ray looked at it, then away. "Not mine." Benny set a second phone beside it. "Your contact sent the same instruction to both men." Ray's jaw flexed. Declan opened the folder. Medical report. Photographs of injuries. Neighbor statements. Bank records showing support money meant for Mia spent at casinos. Phone records connecting you to a man in Baton Rouge who sells children through fake placements. Ray's face changed piece by piece. Declan sat across from him. "You came into my club with papers." Ray swallowed. "You cannot prove anything." Maris slid a printed transcript across the table. "One of the men from the van disagrees." Ray stared at the page. Declan watched him read. The arrogance drained first, then the charm, then the practiced grief. What remained was smaller and uglier. "She is just a kid," Ray muttered. Declan's stillness sharpened. Maris looked up. "Say that again for the recorder if you want to make my job easier." Ray shut his mouth. Declan leaned forward. "You are going to sign a sworn statement. You are going to relinquish any claim to Mia Carter. You are going to name every person involved in arranging her sale." Ray gave a weak smile. "And if I do not," Declan's voice stayed calm, "then the men you owe money to learn you talked enough to become a problem but not enough to become protected." Ray looked at Benny. Benny gave him nothing. Ray looked at Maris. She uncapped a pen and placed it on the table. "You should read before signing. I bill by the hour, but I dislike wasting time." Ray stared at the pen. His hand trembled when he picked it up. It took 26 minutes for him to sign. It took another 40 for him to start naming names. By dawn, Benny had enough to move the case beyond Declan's walls. Sloan was waiting when Declan returned to the club. She stood in the 4th-floor hallway wrapped in a black robe, hair loose around her shoulders. The lamps behind her made her look softer than she ever allowed herself to appear downstairs. "Is it done?" she asked. Declan looked toward Mia's closed door. Ray signed. Sloan studied his face. "And Ray is alive." "Yes." She released a breath she had not meant to hold. Declan stepped closer. "I wanted to kill him." "I know. I still do." "I know. But I did not." Sloane's eyes softened. "No, you did not." From inside the suite, Mia stirred. Her voice came small through the door. "Declan." He opened the door at once. Mia sat up in bed, hair-tangled eyes unfocused with sleep. "You came back." Declan crossed the room and sat beside her. "I said I would." She reached for his hand. He gave it. Sloan remained in the doorway watching as Mia curled around the promise she had been given and fell back asleep. Morning light touched the edges of the curtains. The city outside woke slowly, unaware that the night had shifted the shape of one child's life. Downstairs, phones began ringing. Harper's report moved through official channels. Maris prepared the signed statement. Benny's men delivered names, records, and recordings to places that could not be ignored. In the bed, Mia slept with the red coat folded over the chair where she could see it. The torn sleeve waited for Sloane's needle. The wooden fox rested beside Finch. Declan stayed until the room filled with daylight. Mia did not wake all at once. She came back slowly, one breath at a time, fingers tightening first around Finch, then around the smooth wooden fox Gus had bought her by the river. For a moment, her eyes moved through the room without finding the present. Blue lamp, open door, red coat over the chair, Declan beside the bed. Only then did her body loosen. "You stayed," she whispered. Declan's voice was rough from the long night. "Yes." Her gaze moved to the window. Morning had turned the curtains pale. The city outside had begun its usual noise trucks over wet pavement, distant horns, footsteps on the sidewalk below, but none of it reached the bed with teeth. "Is he gone?" Declan did not lie to children, not anymore. Not to this one. He signed papers saying he has no right to take you. Mia looked at him carefully. Papers can lie. Yes. People can make new ones. Yes. Her hand moved toward the torn sleeve of the red coat. Declan followed the movement. But there are doctors now, lawyers, records, people who have to answer if they ignore what happened. Mia studied his face. "And you? I am here." That answer seemed to matter more than all the others. Sloane stepped in with a folded blanket over one arm and a sewing kit in the other. Her hair was pinned, but not perfectly. One dark strand had fallen near her cheek. Mia noticed, because Mia noticed everything. Sloane held up the red coat. "I can mend this now if you want." Mia sat up slowly. "Can I watch?" "Of course." Sloane took the chair by the window, threaded a needle, and began repairing the torn sleeve with small, careful stitches. Mia watched every pass of thread through fabric as if Sloane were performing a spell. Declan remained beside the bed. The room was quiet except for the soft pull of thread. After a while, Mia asked, "Will the rip disappear?" Sloane paused. "Not completely." Mia looked down. "Oh. But it will hold." Mia thought about that. Sloane tied off the thread and smoothed the sleeve. Some things do not have to look untouched to be strong. Declan glanced at Sloane. She did not look up, but she felt his eyes. Mia reached for the coat. Sloane gave it back without ceremony, without making the moment too large for her to hold. Mia pressed the sleeve to her cheek. "It stayed with me." "Yes," Sloane said. "It did." That afternoon, the official world arrived at the Saint and Sable wearing practical shoes and carrying a leather satchel. Her name was Marion Brooks. She was not impressed by velvet curtains, private elevators, or the way men stood straighter when Declan Cross entered a room. She looked to be in her late 50s, with gray hair pulled into a plain knot and eyes that had read too many case files to be softened by money. Declan met her in the fourth-floor sitting room. Sloane stood near the window. Harper sat on the sofa with medical reports organized in a folder. Gus hovered in the hallway until Sloane told him to stop looming. Benny leaned against the far wall, arms folded, looking like every warning label ever written. Marion looked at him first. "Does he need to be here?" Benny lifted one brow. Declan answered before Benny could. "No." Benny looked at Declan. Declan looked back. After a beat, Benny straightened and left the room. From the hallway, he said, "Door stays open." Marion's pen stopped moving. Sloane almost smiled. Marion turned to Declan. "Mr. Cross, I am going to speak plainly. I prefer it." "I doubt that." Harper coughed into one hand. Marion opened her satchel and removed a notebook. "A child with severe trauma has been found in your private establishment. The alleged abuser has signed documents under circumstances I will be reviewing carefully. You are requesting emergency placement consideration despite your public reputation and private associations. Do you understand how complicated that is?" Declan sat across from her. "Yes." Marion waited, perhaps expecting argument. There was none. Sloane stepped forward slightly. Mia is safe here. Marion turned to her. And you are Sloane Avery. I manage the Saint and Sable. Do you live here? No. Are you related to Mr. Cross? Sloane held her gaze. No. Then why are you present? Sloane glanced toward the hallway where Mia was with Gus in the kitchen downstairs, far from official voices. Because Mia asked where I was. Marion wrote that down. Harper handed over her medical report. She did not soften a single detail. Malnutrition, frost injury, bruises in different stages of healing, burns, old rib trauma, scarring consistent with repeated strikes, trauma responses consistent with prolonged abuse. Marion read in silence. Declan watched her face. People often reacted to Mia's story with rage or pity. Marion did neither. Her expression grew still, but her eyes sharpened. She was placing each fact where it belonged, building a structure strong enough to hold the truth. When she finished, she looked at Declan. You did not take her to a hospital first. Harper came here. That is not what I said. Declan leaned back. She was terrified. She thought walking on carpet would get her punished. A hospital full of noise and strangers would have broken what little trust she had left. Marion's expression did not change. Children in danger need systems, Mr. Cross, not powerful men deciding which rules apply. Sloane's jaw tightened, but Declan lifted one hand slightly. She is right. Sloane looked at him. Declan kept his eyes on Marion. That is why Harper filed the report. That is why you are here. That is why Ray is alive. A small silence followed. Marion wrote that down too. One by one, she interviewed them. Harper spoke first. Clinical, precise, fiercely controlled. Then Sloane. She described Mia's fear of closed doors, her habit of asking whether she had to finish food, her panic over broken pencils and spilled water. She did not cry. She would not let Mia's pain become a performance. But when Marion asked what Mia needed most, Sloane's voice softened. Consistency. She believes safety is something adults can take back when they get tired. She needs people who do not get tired. Marion looked up. And are you one of those people? Sloane answered too quickly. Yes. Declan looked at her then. So did Marion. Sloane did not take it back. Gus came next, wiping his hands on a dish towel even though Sloane had told him not to bring one upstairs. Marion asked how Mia ate. Gus sank into the chair like he was appearing before a firing squad. She eats like food might testify against her. Marion's pen paused. Gus frowned. That sounded strange. No, Marion said. Go on. He rubbed the back of his neck. She saves bread, hides toast, asks if she can keep half a banana. First day she stood near the trash bins because that is where she thought food came from when nobody gave it to her. Now she sits at the prep table. Sometimes she asks for butter. Not often, but she asks. The last two words came rough. Marion wrote, Do you force her to eat? Gus looked offended. Of course not. Do you comment when she hides food? No. Why? Gus looked toward the door. Because a child who hides bread is not stealing. She is remembering. Marion's pen moved more slowly after that. Benny was called in last. He looked deeply unhappy about it. Marion asked him what his role was. Security. For the club or the child. Benny looked at Declan, then at Sloane, then at Marion. Yes. Marion studied him. Do you carry a weapon? Yes. Near Mia? Yes. Does she know? No. Would that frighten her? Yes. Then why carry it? Benny's face was unreadable. Because frightened is better than taken. The room tightened. Marion held his gaze. And what do you do when you enter a room she is in? I knock, even if the door is open. Yes. Why, she jumps if people appear. And if you walk behind her, I say behind you, kid. Every time. Every time. Marion wrote. Benny shifted like he would rather be shot than understood. At last, Marion asked to speak with Mia. Declan stood. No. The word came out too fast. Sloane looked at him. Marion closed her notebook. I need to speak with her alone. Declan's face hardened. She has been questioned enough. She has not been questioned by me. She is 7, and she is the person this is about. The air changed. Declan looked toward the hallway, every instinct in him rising. Sloane stepped closer, not in front of him, but near enough for her voice to reach the part of him that still knew how to listen. Declan. His jaw tightened. She will think we are sending her away. Then we tell her the truth. I do not want her alone with a stranger. Marion's voice stayed even. Mr. Cross, if you cannot allow a trained child welfare worker to speak privately with her, you will make my recommendation very easy. The sentence landed hard. Declan looked at Marion with the kind of stillness that made dangerous men reconsider breathing. Marion did not blink. Sloane said softly, protect her right. That old phrase found him, not just hard. Declan stepped back. Mia met Marion in the small reading room beside the suite. The door stayed open halfway because Mia asked. Declan stayed down the hall because Mia asked that too. Sloane sat on the floor outside the room, close enough for Mia to see her shoes. Marion sat across from Mia at a low table. No desk, no files between them. Finch rested in Mia's lap. The wooden fox sat beside him. Marion pointed to the wooden fox. New friend Mia nodded. Gus bought him. Does he have a name? Mia looked at the fox. Not yet. Names can take time. Mia seemed to like that answer. Marion did not start with Ray. She did not start with pain. She asked about food, lamps, the kitchen, the red coat, Finch, the bed. Mia answered quietly. Then Marion asked, Do you feel safe here? Mia looked at the half-open door. Sloane's shoes were visible outside. Down the hall, Declan stood where she could not see him, but she knew he was there. Mostly. Marion nodded. What does mostly mean, Mia thought for a long moment. It means the room is safe, but my head forgets. Marion did not write immediately. She let the answer sit without trapping it on paper too fast. What helps your head remember? Mia rubbed Finch's torn ear. Lights. Open doors. Gus singing when he cooks. Benny saying behind you before he is behind me. Sloane brushing my hair slow. And Mr. Cross? Mia looked toward the hallway. He stays. Marion's voice softened. What if someday he cannot? Mia's fingers tightened around Finch. The question hurt. It showed on her face before she could hide it. Marion waited. Mia whispered, Then I think Sloane would. Outside the room, Sloane closed her eyes. Declan heard the answer from the hall. Something moved through his chest that was not pain, though it cut like pain. When Marion left the Saint and Sable that evening, she did not smile. She shook Declan's hand with a firm grip and told him there would be court supervision, home inspection, background review, ongoing therapy requirements, and no special favors. Declan said yes to all of it. Marion looked mildly annoyed that he did not argue. 3 weeks later, Declan sat in a parenting class in a community center that smelled of burnt coffee and floor cleaner. He wore a black coat and the expression of a man attending his own trial. A woman with silver bracelets asked the group to describe a time they had validated a child's feelings. Declan stared at the paper cup in his hand. Sloane sat beside him, lips pressed together. The facilitator smiled at him. Mr. Cross. Declan looked up. Yes. Would you like to share? No. Sloane coughed into her hand. The facilitator kept smiling. Sometimes resistance is part of the process. Declan turned to Sloane. I am being held hostage by optimism. Sloane whispered. Validate your own feelings. His eyes narrowed. She smiled into her coffee. That smile stayed with him for the rest of the day. Mia began therapy with a woman named Dr. Elise Wren, whose office had soft chairs, sand trays, and windows that looked out over a courtyard full of ferns. The first session, Mia said nothing. She sat with Finch in her lap and watched the clock. The second session, she arranged toy animals in a corner and placed a plastic tiger in front of the door. The third session, she put a small fox inside a box and covered it with a cloth. Dr. Wren did not force meaning onto it. She only asked, "Does the fox want the cloth there?" Mia whispered, "No." "Can the fox move it?" Mia shook her head. "Can someone help?" Mia looked at Declan, who sat across the room where she had asked him to stay. Declan did not move. Mia lifted one finger and pointed at a small wooden bear. "The bear can." Dr. Wren nodded. "Does the bear ask first?" Mia thought. Yes. Declan looked at the toy bear for a long time. That night, Mia slept in the bed for 4 hours. Then she moved to the corner. Declan found her there in the morning and did not say a word about it. He only brought her a blanket and a cup of warm milk with cinnamon because Gus insisted cinnamon improved most tragedies. Spring came to New Orleans softly. Rain turned warmer. The river smelled of mud and sun. Balcony flowers spilled over iron rails. The Saint and Sable changed too. Not in ways guests could name, but staff could feel it. Fewer slammed doors. Softer voices near the back halls. A bowl of fruit always on the 4th floor. Lamps left on without discussion. Mia learned letters with Sloane. She learned pancake batter with Gus. She learned that Benny could make a coin disappear and then pretend he had no idea where it went. The first time he pulled it from behind her ear, she stared at him for 5 full seconds. Then she said very seriously, "That is suspicious." Benny nodded. "It is." She smiled. Not a flash. Not an accident. A smile. Declan saw it from the doorway and turned away before anyone could see what it did to him. Sloane saw anyway. That evening she found him on the balcony outside his office looking over the quarter as music rose from the street below. "You looked happy today." Declan glanced at her. Dangerous accusation. She smiled at Benny. "Benny has been unbearable since. He deserves to be." Declan leaned against the iron railing. Sloane stood beside him close enough for their sleeves to touch. The city below smelled like rain, magnolia whiskey, and old stone warming after a storm. "You were right," he said. Sloane looked at him. "About many things. Be specific. If I had killed Ray, this would be different." "Yes. I want it fast." "I know." She needed permanent. Sloane turned her face toward the street, but he saw the emotion cross it. "She still does." Declan looked at her profile, the line of her jaw, the loosened strand of hair near her cheek, the woman who had stood beside him without letting him hide behind fear or power. "I need you there," he said. Her eyes returned to his. "At court, in the house, in the hard parts, when I get it wrong." Sloane's guard rose by instinct. "Declan, I am not asking you to become an ornament in my life. Good. I would make a terrible ornament. I am asking because when Mia looks for safety, she looks for you too." The words reached her. Below, someone laughed on the sidewalk. A carriage rolled by with soft hoofbeats on wet pavement. Sloane's voice lowered. "And when you look for it," Declan did not look away. "I look for you." For a moment, the city faded to the space between them. Sloane stepped closer. This time there was no creaking floorboard, no frightened child in the doorway, no urgent call from Benny. Declan lifted his hand to her cheek, slowly, giving her every chance to leave. She did not. Their kiss was quiet at first, careful as a match cupped against wind. Then Sloane's hand closed in his shirt, and Declan made a low sound like a man finally setting down something heavy. They separated only when Mia's voice came from inside the office. "Are you kissing?" Sloane closed her eyes. Declan looked over her shoulder. Mia stood near the desk with Finch in one hand and a library book in the other. "Yes," Declan said. Sloane turned red in a way he would remember forever. Mia considered this. "Are you going to be weird now?" Sloane laughed. It surprised all three of them. Declan looked at Mia. "Probably." Mia nodded as if that matched her expectations. "Gus says people in love get stupid." From the hallway, Gus called, "I stand by my scholarship." Mia's first court hearing took place in a pale room downtown that smelled like paper old wood and nervous breath. Judge Evelyn Marsh sat above them with silver hair, sharp eyes, and no patience for performance. Mia wore a blue dress Sloane had chosen and the red boots she refused to outgrow emotionally, though they were beginning to pinch. Finch sat in her lap. The wooden fox was in Declan's coat pocket because Mia said he needed to learn courage. Marion Brooks sat with her report. Harper was present. Dr. Wren had submitted notes. Ray's confession had gone through proper channels. Tara Carter's statement had arrived 2 days earlier, signed with a shaking hand and witnessed by a woman at a motel outside Lafayette. Tara did not appear in court. Mia asked once if she would. When told no, she only nodded. No one knew whether the nod meant relief or grief. Probably both. Judge Marsh looked at Declan over her glasses. "Mr. Cross, I will not pretend your name does not carry complications." Declan stood. "Yes, Your Honor. You have influence in this city. Yes. Some of it legitimate." A faint sound came from Benny in the back row. Sloane did not turn, but she knew his face. Declan answered evenly. "Yes, Your Honor." The judge looked at the file before her. Men with power often confuse protection with possession. Mia's fingers tightened around Finch. Declan looked down at her, then back at the judge. "I know." The judge waited. Declan's voice remained calm, but the room leaned toward him. "Mia does not belong to me. She belongs to herself. I am asking for the responsibility of making sure no one forgets that again." Sloane's hand moved over his on the table. Not to steady him, to stand with him. Judge Marsh turned to Mia. "Would you like to speak?" Mia looked at Declan. He nodded once. Not pushing, only present. Mia stood. The chair was too large behind her. "I do not know all the court words." "That is all right," Judge Marsh said. Mia held Finch against her chest. "I like the lights on. Declan leaves them on. Gus makes eggs and does not get mad if I save toast. Sloane brushes my hair slow. Benny says behind you before he walks behind me." Her voice trembled. "I still get scared. Sometimes I think I have to go back. Sometimes I wake up and I do not know where I am." The room was silent. Mia looked at Declan. But when he says he will stay, he is still there in the morning. Judge Marsh removed her glasses. Marion looked down at her report. Gus made a noise that he tried to turn into a cough. Benny handed him a tissue without looking at him. The judge granted continued placement under review. Not adoption. Not yet. But Mia left the courthouse holding Declan's hand. That night she slept in the bed until dawn. Months passed in small victories and ordinary failures. Mia spilled milk and froze. Declan handed her a towel and asked if she wanted more milk. She stared at him for 10 seconds before answering yes. Mia hid bread under her pillow after a nightmare. Sloane found it the next morning and replaced it with a small tin of crackers in the bedside drawer. Mia shouted no during therapy and then cried because she thought shouting meant she was bad. Dr. Wren told her no was a useful word. Mia practiced saying it in different voices until she laughed. Mia went to school for half-days at first. The first week she did not speak to another child. The second, she drew foxes in the margins of her worksheet. The third, she told a boy named Oliver that crayons were not for eating with such grave authority that the teacher had to turn away. Declan learned school pickup. He learned snack schedules. He learned that children's shoes disappeared inside houses with no criminal assistance. He learned that glitter was impossible to defeat. Sloane learned to leave some emails unanswered. She learned that love did not always arrive like surrender. Sometimes it arrived as a child's hairbrush on her bathroom sink and Declan's coat over her shoulders when she fell asleep in his office. Benny learned that Mia preferred warnings to surprises and bad magic tricks to good ones. Gus learned that a 7-year-old could insult his pancakes by asking for more syrup and still become the center of his universe. 1 year after the night in the rain, they returned to court. Mia wore a cream dress this time with a blue ribbon Sloane had tied twice because Mia wanted it to stay. Her red boots had been retired to a shelf in her bedroom, polished and sacred. She wore new shoes, now black patent leather chosen after 20 minutes of silent debate in the store. Finch came along. So did the wooden fox, now named River. Judge Marsh reviewed the final reports. Marion recommended adoption. Dr. Wren supported permanency. Harper confirmed Mia's health had improved. The state had no remaining objection. Ray Mercer's rights were terminated. Tara had relinquished any claim. Mia sat very still. Declan could feel the tension in her hand. Judge Marsh looked at her. "Mia Carter, do you understand what is being decided today?" Mia swallowed. Mostly. The judge's mouth softened. "What do you understand?" Mia looked at Declan, then Sloane, then Gus Harper and Benny in the row behind them. "That I can stay." Judge Marsh nodded. "Yes." Mia's voice dropped. "And nobody can come with papers and take me, no." Mia's eyes filled, but she blinked hard. Judge Marsh signed the order. The sound of pen on paper was almost nothing. It changed everything. "Your petition for adoption is granted. From this day forward, your legal name is Mia Carter Cross." Mia stared at the judge. The room blurred around her. Declan crouched before she could ask him to. Right there beside the table in a courtroom full of people who had once feared his height and now watched him lower himself to meet a child's eyes. "For always," Mia whispered. Declan's answer came without hesitation. "For always." She threw herself into his arms. The sound that came from Gus behind them was not dignified. Benny passed him another tissue. Sloane pressed one hand to her mouth, tears slipping through her composure before she could stop them. Declan reached for her without letting Mia go. Sloane took his hand. Mia looked between them. "Are we all staying?" Sloane knelt beside them. "Yes." Mia leaned into both of them as if her body had finally understood what paper could mean when truth stood behind it. That evening, the Saint and Sable closed to the public. A sign on the front door read, "Private Event." No one dared argue with it. Inside, there were no politicians, no investors, no men looking for favors. Just staff family, music, warm food, and a cake Gus had threatened 3 pastry chefs over before making himself. Mia stood on a chair in the kitchen watching him light candles. "Is the cake for adoption?" Gus placed the last candle with great precision. "The cake is for surviving my emotions. It has too much frosting." Gus put a hand over his heart. "Betrayal in my own kitchen." Mia smiled. Benny taught her the ridiculous handshake again. She got it right on the first try, including the absurd clicking sound at the end. Harper brought Finch a tiny toy stethoscope, which Mia used to examine River, then Declan, then Benny, declaring Benny suspicious but stable. Sloane gave Mia a framed drawing. It showed the Saint and Sable in golden pencil rain falling outside one small figure in a red coat standing near the door. Above it, in Sloane's careful hand, were the words, "Room for Mia." Mia stared at the frame for a long time. Can we hang it where people see Declan looked at the drawing, then at the child who had once asked if she could walk on his carpet? Front hall. Mia looked up. Really? Yes. So people know Sloane touched her shoulder. So you know. Later at the Garden District house, the night settled softly over the old rooms. The house had once felt too large to Declan, too full of echoes, built by a man who thought marble could make a family respectable. For years, Declan had used only a few rooms and locked the rest. Now there were books in the parlor, crayons in the library, a child's coat on the stair rail, and a small wooden fox forgotten on a windowsill. Mia stood in the doorway of her bedroom. The blue lamp glowed on the table. Finch waited on the pillow. River sat beside him. The closet door was open. The hallway light was on. The bed was turned down, but no one expected her to use it before she was ready. She looked back at Declan and Sloane. "Can the door stay open?" Declan said. "Yes." "Can the hall light stay on?" Sloane said yes. Mia touched the bedspread. "Can you stay until I fall asleep?" Declan sat in the chair beside the bed. Sloane leaned against the doorway. "Yes," Declan said. Mia climbed into bed. Not the corner. The bed. She pulled the blanket to her chin and tucked Finch beneath one arm. Her eyes moved to Sloane. "Are you staying too?" Sloane crossed the room and sat on the edge of the mattress. For a while, Mia's eyelids grew heavy. "Declan." "Yes, little fox." "I am glad you had room." The sentence struck him so quietly that for a moment he could not answer. Sloane looked at him, and he knew she heard what he could not say. That Mia had not filled an empty room. She had opened one. Declan reached out and smoothed the blanket near Mia's shoulder. "Me too." Mia's eyes closed. Her breathing slowed. The room held. Outside, New Orleans hummed with river wind, distant music, and secrets moving through old streets. Inside, the door stayed open. The light stayed on. Declan sat beside the bed with Sloane's hand resting gently in his, and Mia Carter Cross slept like morning was no longer something she had to earn.